Welcome to Wine Soundtrack South Africa. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
G'day friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Marina Kaler, and today I'm chatting to Brad Paton from Buitenverwachting Estate. Hello Brad, a very warm welcome. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, hi. I'm a born Capetonian, born in Port Elizabeth, and grew up in Cape Town. Went to school in Cape Town, studied and lived and worked in Germany for 8 years, and then decided to come home and find myself a winemaking position close to where I grew up, which is in the heart of Cape Town. And now I'm in Constantia at Buitenverwachting.
That's awesome. It's such a lovely farm, I must say. For our listeners, it's got the most spectacular lawns, and they do these picnics in summer. It's such a vibe. But tell me more about Buitenverwachting. Where is it? What is your production like?
Well, we're actually situated in the middle of the Constantia Valley. So when I say in the middle, in between all the farms of the valley. We're the biggest farm in the valley, hectare-wise, and I think also on our plantings, our vines under hectares. We focus on Sauvignon Blanc. We've got a total of roughly between 95 and 100 hectares planted at the moment of grapes, of which 65% is Sauvignon Blanc. So we focus on Sauvignon on the whites, and then on the reds we do Bordeaux varietals, red Bordeaux varietals, but we also do some specialized wines in small batches. So we do a bit of Chardonnay, and I do some interesting stuff with Sauvignon and some of the reds. And there's a few projects under the mat at the moment, but we're I think I've been here since 2004 at Buitenverwachting, and it's a family-run farm, run by and owned by a German family, bought by the Mueller family, and my boss now, who's the son, has taken over the reins, who runs the sales, marketing, and basically the whole farm, and then I run the cellar side.
Okay, and tell me how much is under vine at Buitenverwachting, and what is generally your average production? Under
vine, we've got roughly between 90 and 95 hectares under vine, and we look at about between 600 and 700 tons, depending on the vintage, of our Constantia grapes, and then I buy in roughly about 200 tons from the west coast, but that is for our entry-level everyday wine. So all the rest of our wines are actually homegrown, meaning grown on the farm itself in Constantia, and those wines go into our embossed Constantia bottle that all the farms use.
Okay, so when you were a little boy, what did you want to be?
I love nature, I love animals, and it was always going to be something to do with nature. I didn't know where it was going to be. I wasn't going to be a vet or anything like that. I really didn't have the marks and the brains for that, but it was always going to be in some type of farming. So it went from being a game ranger to fruit farming, and then in 1993, I was introduced to wine by a family friend who was a winemaker at a wine farm in Franschhoek, and he took me on a cellar tour, and it was then and there in the barrel cellar in 1993 that I decided I want to be a winemaker.
That's a pretty seminal moment.
Yeah.
Hey, wow, okay. And then, do you have any specific memories that relate to tasting a wine, like something special that really made you get goosebumps all over?
Yeah, while I was living and working in Germany, I got to visit France quite a lot, and not taking anything away from Germany, but I visited Burgundy quite a few times with one of my bosses at the time, who was also a big fan of Burgundy, being Pinot Noir and Chardonnay area, and I got to do some very special tastings, behind the scene tastings, barrel tastings that the public couldn't really have access to, and then also took part in 1 or 2 Hospice de Born tastings, the auctions, so where you get to do tastings of barrel samples in bone, and just the food and the vibe and the wine, that's some of my fondest memories. And then obviously Germany, where I was working for all those years, I got to farm with Pinot Noir as well. It sounds weird, nobody really knows much about German Pinot Noir internationally, but they've got a very, very old region on the Rhine with very old vines, very old vineyards on very steep slopes, and they're producing some really great Pinot, and that's kind of where my love for Burgundy started.
Yeah, I've had some of those German Pinot Noirs. What are they called? Spätburgunder. That's the one, Spätburgunder. And they really, really are lovely, very enjoyable, but you're absolutely right. It's not something that Germans are known for producing particularly well, but they are remarkable. So back to Buitenverwachting. Where in the world can our listeners find your wines?
We're actually, internationally, we're in the States, we're big in the UK, we're in Germany, very big. Germany is actually our biggest export market, and then, we're a bit in Switzerland, we're in Holland, we're actually all over, we're not in the East, and we're not in Australasia either, so really, and we're not in South America, but everywhere else really, our wines should be accessible, and it's always obviously handy to look online, but export market is only 40% of our production, so we've got a really great local following in South Africa, which is really good to have, and it's great to have such a big fan base in your own country. And with our production, we're looking at between 1 and 1.2 million bottles, depending on the vintage. It's great to have such a local backing, and we saw that during lockdown, where alcohol was allowed to be sold, but export was kind of stopped, and our local followers visited the farms more frequently, and it actually started before COVID in 2017, 2018, where through word of mouth people started visiting the farm in masses and just chilling, and locals, and the farm was packed with locals. So we have that now on Saturdays in summer, where the farm is, we have to close the gates at the front because we've reached full capacity, and that's only for day visitors coming to sit on the lawns and drink wine and eat a platter,
It really is fantastic, and to think that it's almost as if it happened overnight. The way that word spread that this is where you need to go on a weekend just for a cool, fun family picnic vibe. So really wonderful how that's happened. Tell me about your flagship wine. What is it? What's in the bottle, and what does it cost?
That's a difficult one. We've always had the Christine as our flagship red, which is a Bordeaux blend, depending on vintage. Once again, I don't work with the recipe, and that's why I always say depending on vintage. Depends whether it's got 3 of the Bordeaux varietals in, or whether it's got 5 or 4. It's called Christine. Generally spends 2 years in 100% new French oak, and then spends another between 3 and 4 years in bottle maturation cellar, and then we release it onto the market. But then over the years since I've been at Buitenverwachting, I've started a whole lot of other little speciality wines that are generally only available from the property, where they kind of scratching on the Christine's feet, on the heels of Christine wanting to also be up there, because I think it's always good to stay innovative and new, and when you talk about a flagship, not always everybody can afford a flagship, so you've got to create some appetite for that wine or for that dish or whatever you're making or selling, to get people to step up at some stage and appreciate quality and not just price. I mean, the Christine is at about 500 Rand now a bottle, and if we look at the age of Buitenverwachting and how long we've been quite a big brand in the country, 500 Rand for flagship is quite well priced. On the whites, I did say we focus more on white wine, and on Sauvignon. On the white, flagship is our Hussey's Vlees Sauvignon and Maximus, those two whites. And then once again, I do a whole lot of little speciality wines around those that I also don't do every year.
Well, I recently had the Maximus, and I had goosebumps that day. It was a special tasting that I attended, and it was one of the bottles that you showcased on the day, and really blew my mind. I've told a few people about that since then, because it was an outstanding wine. So you've travelled the world fairly extensively. What would you... Is there one that maybe you can highlight, a wine that really kind of just blew your mind?
I've never been one to always wear a T-shirt with a music group on it, so it's very difficult for me as a person to choose a favourite in anything I do. I have lots of favourites. Maybe it's because I can't make up my mind, or maybe it's just because I like a bit of everything. Having travelled and worked in different countries, you always take something special away with you, and I don't have one exact tasting memory where I say it was my best. There was always something in... whether it was a tasting in France or a tasting in Germany at some exclusive winery where no public are allowed, or in the cave where the water's dripping from the rocks in the cellar above your head, and just drinking wines always comes with an ambience or some type of emotional connection to where you are, what time you're there, what the weather's like, your company. There's all these connections, and there's never one thing that really makes it all, unless you're with a bad company. The wine's good, but otherwise, there's all these things that play a part, and it's all part of life. So,
yeah, it's about the wider experience, I suppose, at the end of the day. So, do you believe in a perfect variety? Do you think there is such a thing?
No, I don't, because once again, I believe you can create magic with very different varieties, many different varieties, should I say, also depending on where you're making the wine, and your possibilities. It's one thing to make. I mean, making wine, sometimes I always catch myself overthinking something, and then I think, way back then, you go back into the old days, and when they were making wine, they didn't have all these fancy machines and tools and barrels, and and we overthink things sometimes. And I think you can create magic with any varietal. The point is, you've always got to try something. Be brave enough to try something, to step out of your comfort zone. Some people call it being a cowboy or whatever. It's just really about not always doing the same thing and not walking in a straight line like a bunch of sheep, but trying something new and being able to show people something new and what's possible with varietals. The Maximus is one example for me, and you've just said it to me. I mean, Maximus, never does well in any competitions because it's not your typical Sauvignon and it's not your typical barrel-aged Sauvignon, and I know exactly why, because it's the way I do it. And the point is that it's a wonderful wine, and it can be a Sauvignon Blanc, but because it doesn't fit into a stereotype, sometimes things like that, whether it's a Sauvignon or a Cab or a Mueller or a Malbec or a Petit Verdot, because it doesn't fit into a stereotype, it gets its legs taken out. And that's why there's always a niche group of people that love different things. And if I didn't stay creative and didn't stop trying new things, I think my job would be boring, even though we have the variety, the vintage differences and problems and challenges that we have to deal with as winemakers and farmers every year. I don't work with recipes, so it's like making spaghetti bolognese. The bolognese sauce never tastes the same because you're feeling this way one day when you're making it, and you're feeling another way another day you're making it, and then you use a little bit more pepper and you use a little bit more, put a few more olives in it, or less carrots, or using stupid examples, but it is that's it.
Which brings me to the question, do you have an opinion on critics, wine scoring, competitions, that kind of thing? What are your thoughts?
I
ask you because I know you're opinionated.
I caught me blushing there. It's really, it's something. There's many different ways of looking at this. It's really about what you're wanting to enter a competition for. What is your goal? What is your purpose? Do you need that for marketing, as to use it as a marketing tool, or for an ego booster, or who are you trying to impress? Yourself or somebody else? Or you're looking for national, global recognition for your wines. Entering competitions is sometimes like playing the lotto. In my experience, in the short time I've been making wine, always the wines that I'm so excited about, and I never enter any competitions, my boss does, and the wines I'm always excited for him to enter are never the wines that do well. It's always the underdogs that come out at the top. And sometimes you can actually sometimes I wish I could just be excited for the underdogs so that the ones I'm really excited about win something. But no, it's really puzzling. And when it comes to critics, that's what I like about some of the wines I make. My limited range, that I don't do every vintage, and the weird things that I do with different varietals. They don't have any varietal on the label, and when I let these critics or gurus taste these wines, I never tell them what is in the bottle, which kind of tends to put them off sometimes. Put them on their back foot a little bit. Some find it irritating, some find it challenging and exciting. And it's just, for me, it's also just to show me that these people that are pushed up onto a pedestal, that they've got all these stereotypes in their head and everything they've learnt and tasted. And yes, some have got extensive experience in tasting and have great palates. But sometimes there's a lot of bullshit around it. And I hate pretentiousness. So I think those types of wines bring them back down to ground level, and I have had one or two of them say thank you to me for putting them in that space where they come down to earth again, and they go, what a great experience. And it's like, and what I tell people out there, it's like when we as winemakers in Constantia, or winemakers in general, I would like to believe that when you taste your own wines blind somewhere, and you don't know, your wines are in the lineup, but you don't know which wines they are. Sometimes you're very humbled by such a tasting because you are caught out, and you end up slating your own wine, underscoring your own wine, or giving it a really bad score. And then you're really humbled, and you come back down to ground level, because there's a lot of hot shots out there in the wine industry, apparently. And it's really good for even those people to come down to everybody else's level and go, I could have maybe I could have looked at doing something different, or maybe, because when you're tasting a lineup blind, you're tasting it on your own, whether you're sitting next to 10 different people, it doesn't matter. When you're tasting those wines, whether it's 4 glasses or 6 or 3, it's between you, the glass, and the paper, and that's where you're on your own. It's like every famous person that's known throughout the world, or every fancy person that everybody says, I wish I was like that. That person also sits on the toilet every day, or that person also has their alone time when they're in the shower every day with their own thoughts, and they're actually also human. And I think that's what's good for all of us, including myself as a winemaker, that you are brought down to earth again every now and then when you think your wines are so great and that you're doing such a great job, that you can also criticize your own wines without even knowing they're your wines. And just to answer a possible question, no, sometimes you don't know your own wines. You think, and everybody, and a lot of winemakers out there think, I'm going to pick up my wine straight away. But sometimes when you're in a different environment, with the crowd around you, and there's a bit of pressure, indirect pressure, you are in a different space in your mind, and sometimes then you taste, when you're tasting blind, you're basically tasting innocently, and that's when you're kind of really humbled.
Yeah, I suppose that's when you can be most objective, because it's innocent, as you say. Yeah. There's nothing to lead you other than knowing that, well, maybe this could be mine, but it kind of levels the playing field somewhat as well. So as a consumer, what do you enjoy drinking?
I also I like trying different things. I try not to, as everybody else, so we get stuck in a rut, or we get stuck on one track, or stay on a road, and we stick to always the same things that we buy. It's just easier, and that's how we are as humans. And I try to catch myself in those moments, and so I like trying different things sometimes, and I'm going through a bit of a phase where I'm trying lots of Shannons at the moment, because I've got some things going on the farm, and it's just good for me to see what's out there, what's rated, what's quiet, under the radar, different styles. So at the moment I'm trying here and there, I'm trying a few Shannons, and and you also try and get away from tasting your own wines all the time at home. That's also easy, just to have your own stuff and drink your own stuff, but sometimes you also need to freshen your palate. And we do a lot of swap outs at shows, or amongst the farmers and winemakers here in the valley in Constantia. We swap out wines, which is always very exciting. And when I see mates and colleagues out there, and we go visit them or whatever, or they come here, then they bring a few bottles and we swap out. So that's always good. But as a consumer, what I like drinking in summer, gin and tonic is what I enjoy. And I think the biggest thing I enjoy about it is, there's two things. Firstly, it's refreshing. And secondly, I can put ice in it. I can't see myself putting ice in a glass of wine. And I know, in the old days it was frowned upon, and I just can't see, and people don't understand. I do understand you got to drive home maybe, or you want to have more than 2 glasses of wine without feeling sozzled. So you put a few blocks of ice in, but really a lot of work goes into putting a wine in a bottle, or most of the time. And by putting ice in it, you're not extending that flavor, you're shortening the flavor. So you're diluting everything. So yes, it may taste nice to people, but there may be good reasons for doing it, but really you can't tell me how good my wine is if you've put 3 blocks of ice in it, because it's just not the same wine. So that's what I like about gin and tonic. I can put it down in summer when we're braaiing or socializing with friends and family, and it's not going to warm up. But you know, if you in summer here you're braaiing and you're out with friends and you're all drinking white wine, you got to drink that wine very quickly, otherwise it's going to get warm in the glass, and I don't like drinking warm things really. And then you end up getting smashed before the day is over. So slow down your drinking and either put ice in your wine or drink a gin and tonic or a brandy and coke.
I must say, I'm on your page when it comes to ice. I know it's not about the rules and how you should and shouldn't, but for me, I think I also appreciate the hard work and the love and the effort that's gone into producing a really good wine. If I actually would rather say if it's summer and you really feel like you need to keep it chilled in the glass, you get those little plastic ice cubes that are filled with water. Keep a bunch of those in your freezer, and you can pop them in the glass. They'll keep your wine nice and chilled without kind of melting and diluting the wine. Or even something that looks really pretty, I think, is marbles. If you put marbles in the freezer.
There's whiskey stones as well.
Yeah. So there's lots of different ways, but the ideal is to just not dilute the wine.
Yeah.
But then if you've now ended up having a little bit more wine than you possibly anticipated because you needed to finish it before it gets hot, and you end up with a hangover, what is Brad Paton's ultimate hangover cure? You must have one.
I think, I'm not really a pill popper. So before I resort to popping a pill, I think Bloody Marys can work quite well. There's a good biltong mix as well called Babalas mix, which is like chopped biltong with very spicy with lots of different pieces, and you don't get that everywhere. Some people like a greasy breakfast or something. I don't believe that makes me feel even worse. So if you have, I know generally people don't have tomato juice in their fridge, but I find that helps. Yeah. Or you got to carry on drinking.
Well, the Bloody Mary is kind of hair of the dog, I think depending on the day of the week. If
Virgin
it's on
Mary. It can be a Virgin Mary. Can be a Virgin Mary.
No, you've lost me.
Yeah.
You've just lost me now. Okay, so you're at Buitenverwachting doing what you do well, and a UFO lands on that beautiful lawn. And out comes a bunch of aliens. They've been traveling for a long time. They are thirsty. What are you going to pour for them?
I would give them a ice cold glass of Paton Blanc, or my new rosé that we've just bottled. And if they want to stay a little bit longer, then we'll delve into something a little bit more serious.
Okay. In your free time, what do you get up to?
I actually love socializing, and I love just appreciating where we live. Luckily, I live on a part of the farm where it's kind of hidden from the public and from the cellar. So when I'm at home up in the vineyards, I can shut off. But I enjoy camping, and I enjoy spending time with friends and family. And life can be short, and I don't have a lot of time. We work a lot of hours, and I spend a lot of time on the farm, which I don't mind because it's just part of my life. So when I am really free, I like to spend it with people that mean a lot to me in my life, and tend to steer clear of pretentious events and pretentious socializing, because when your time is limited, when your free time is limited, you want to spend it wisely. So whether it's with the kids and doing outdoor things, or just spending quality time with those people that mean a lot to you.
And tell me, do you support any sports teams or sporting individuals in specific genres of sport?
Yes, I enjoy watching rugby, and I'm obviously a Stormers supporter, and an avid Springbok supporter as well, on the rugby side. And yeah, that's really about it. I'm not a big Formula One football fan or anything like that. So when you come to my house, I generally won't have football or something on the TV. It will be music or something playing in the background. And otherwise, I'm a great supporter of my son. And he enjoys hockey. He enjoys every sport actually, but rugby and hockey and and my daughter, who's more into horse riding and dancing. So a bit of everything.
Nice. You mentioned music. What kind of music are you into? Specific genres, bands, artists? What's your vibe?
I have got an old soul, and I think I've passed it on to my kids as well. So maybe it's not too old, but Beach Boys. I like a lot of jazz. Everything from Queen to Depeche Mode to Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Robbie Williams. Bits and pieces from every genre, depending on how I'm feeling. And depending on the mood and the setting, So, jazz is really good. Different types of jazz, and depending on how, sometimes. And I've heard a lot of people come into the cellar, they kind of can judge my mood on the music that's playing in the cellar. So we've got a big sound system throughout the whole cellar, and my Spotify playlist is on there. But obviously over the years during harvest, I always get interns from abroad every year, and then they always add their bits and pieces onto my playlist. So I've got a bit of everything. Some of the stuff I can't even understand. But it's really all about the tune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think music really does just evoke all kinds of emotions and can definitely set a tone as to where you're at. Tell me, what is your proudest achievement professionally to date?
I think professionally, well, firstly, I graduated, which I didn't even think I was going to study because I wasn't really the student, a model student. But I graduated in Germany at Geisenheim, which is, it was all in German, and I'd lived there for 8 years, so I suppose I should have picked up the language, but everything was in German. That was, I think, a big milestone for me, even though it wasn't important for my future and my career. I think getting the job at Buitenverwachting down the road was a huge thing for me. And I think every year, personally, I have a little achievement at work, so whether it's inner wine, and that's what it's about, staying innovative and trying new things. And what else? There's, I can't say winemaker of the year, or no, it's, I think, that's really it. And I think my biggest achievement in life is having found what I love to do, which is my profession. I think that's not everybody finds that.
You're absolutely right. Having a passion for what you do, it means that you don't go to work every day. You go to live out your passion.
There's no Mondays.
No, it really makes a big difference. Tell me, do you think, looking back at the history of winemaking, how long people have been making and drinking wine, do you think wine will still be around in 2,000 years' time?
Yes, definitely. It will be around. There will be a lot of different angles to wines as well. I mean, we can just look at what's happened in the wine world in the last 10 years, nationally and internationally, should I say, with mixers and de-alcoholized wine and flavored wine. And I suppose in 2,000 years, you could drink a bottle of wine that's sitting in Paris. You could drink it through your fibre, I think you can drink it virtually, where you're not going to have it in your glass. Yeah, geez, if we're around in 2,000 years, yeah.
Well, it's if you think about it and what you've just said, for me, imagine there's like a little chip implanted in you, and you can, with every wine that you drink physically, you can kind of record that memory, and then you can just go onto your phone and press a button, and this chip will return the memory in your brain, because it's all sensorial. Okay, that's made me think. Okay, so these aliens that have been enjoying Buitenverwachting's wine, they have to now return, but you've had such a wonderful time with them. They've invited you to join them in their spaceship and to come and check out their world. And they've asked you to bring 3 bottles of wine with you. Which 3 bottles from anywhere would you choose to take along?
I think I would take maybe a bottle of that's difficult. Only 3 bottles. Sounds like flying abroad. You can only pack 3 bottles in your suitcase. It would have to be a combination of a everyday drinker, an in-betweener, and something very serious. So I think to be fair, we'd stick to South African wine, because we would be in South Africa and I'd be leaving from here. So maybe I would take a bottle of Ryk Reserve Sauvignon. I would take a bottle of Jensamate Vin Blanc. I've only got one more. Mm-hmm. Something serious. I've got a bottle of 2017 double cab that I made. No, not 2000, bottle of 2017, yeah. It's called Double Cab. It hasn't been released yet, and I wouldn't be able to try it yet, so I'd have to take it with and open it at a later stage somewhere on that planet.
Interesting. I wonder how that would age in space.
Yeah.
Okay, we're almost done. Before we finish up, I'd like to play a little game. Okay. So I'm going to name 3 varieties, and you are going to pair each variety with a song or a music artist or a genre, whatever really you feel kind of best complements this variety.
Okay.
Let's start with Semillon.
Spandau Ballet.
Gold. Okay, let's go with that. Spandau Ballet for Semillon. Then moving on to, let's say, Malbec.
Meatloaf.
Mm-hmm. I can see that and the reasoning behind it. Bit of savoury, shall I say. Right, last one. Petit Verdot.
Deep purple.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Super. Brad, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we finish off, would you mind just sharing with our listeners, number one, where they'll be able to find you online, on social media, and if they were to ever visit South Africa and come to Buitenverwachting, what could they expect to find there?
Online, we do have an online store. It's www.Buitenverwachting.com. We've got an Instagram page. I think that's kind of the most up-to-date one. We're not big on social medias, but Facebook and the website is probably not where it should be. But Instagram, I think, is the most current one. If you're just looking at or wanting to find out what's going on, which would be wine tasting at Buitenverwachting, something like that. And then the other question was?
What can they expect to find if they were to come here?
Where to Buitenverwachting. Depending on the time of year, if you had to come now, if you had to come in autumn, which was from April to just before now, you would have probably the best days, Cape Town experiences of the year. Not too hot, not too cold, blue skies, no wind. And then, the wine tasting at the farm is very cozy at this time of year. We do homemade soups, and then we do platters for inside. We've got a nice lounge seated area with a fireplace. So it's quite a cozy wine tasting. It's not huge, it's not big, but it's very cozy. So it's very homely. The lounge area in the old Cape Dutch building. And then in summer you'd have to gear yourself up for lots of party, especially if it's on a Saturday. Lots of people enjoying being outside, open space, and if you don't get there early enough, there won't be much open space. But good food, good wine, and beautiful ambience on the farm.
Super. Brad, thank you so much for your time. It was lovely getting to know you and learning about Buitenverwachting. Thank you so much to our listeners.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack South Africa. For details and updates, visit our website winesoundtrack.com.